freedom, people had to fight. In order to have freedom, people had to sacrifice their lives. How many of us today need freedom? Let me show you the word freedom or liberty means. It means freedom or release from slavery, from imprisonment, from captivity, or any form of arbitrary control. Limited with no control, not confined or permitted, not allowed to be free. And that sounds like us today. But man, I want to not be confined no more. I don't want to be a slave to sin no more. I don't want to be in captivity no more. I don't want to sit there and be controlled by the devil no more. I don't want to sit there. I want to be released from slavery, released from imprisonment. I don't want to be literally a person that's locked up anymore in my mind, in my heart, in my community, in my family. But I want the freedom of God. I think it sounds like that we need freedom. They fought for their independence. The word means the state of quality of being independent. Freedom from influence, control, or determination of another or others. And that's what they wanted. They said, listen, we don't want to be influenced by Great Britain no more. We don't want to be literally controlled by Great Britain no more. We want to worship our God. We want to live our lives. We want to do what we're called to do. And bring that into God. Now, it's the same thing the devil tries to do to you and I. Tells us, listen, you go to church, but don't you dare try to serve God. You go to church, but don't you dare think you're going to be free. We're influenced by the world. We're influenced by the devil. We're influenced by all kinds of madness that are around us in our lives. Remember the great words that Henry Patrick said? And he said these words, Patrick Henry, he says, give me liberty or give me death. I thought about that. It was written March 23rd, 1775, right before the Declaration of Independence was even brought up. But let me read to you what he said today. Let me begin to bring you in just the history to show you what was taking place. Because they went to war to have freedom. And the same thing that they did, that you and I got to continue to do in our lives, that we have to be able to say, listen, I'm willing to go to war. I'm willing to fight. I'm willing to sit there. Give me liberty or give me death. But I'm not going to sit here and be a prisoner no more for the devil, for the world, or for myself. Look at the words that he says. It was right before the Declaration of Independence was written. Look what he says. No man thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism as well as abilities of the very worthy gentlemen who have just addressed the House. But different men often see the same subject in different lights, and therefore I hope it will not be thought disrespectful to those gentlemen. If entertaining as I do opinions of character very opposite to theirs, I shall speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. This is no time for ceremony. The questioning before the House is one awful moment in this country. For my own part, I consider it as nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery. As a proportion to the magnitude of the subject ought to be freedom of the debate. It is only this way that we can hope to arrive at truth and fulfill the great responsibility that we owe to God and to our country. Should I keep back my opinions at such a time as this, through fear or giving of offense, I should consider myself guilty of treason towards my country and of an act of disloyalty towards my majesty of heaven, which I revere above all earthly kings. Mr. President, is it natural to man to indulge in illusions of hope? We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and listen to the song of the siren until she transforms us into a beast. In this part of the wise men engaged in great and arduous struggle for liberty, are we disposed of the number of those who have having eyes see not, having ears hear not, and things which so nearly concern their temporal salvation? For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cause, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it. I have but one lamp, but my feet are guided by it, and that is the lamp of experience. I know no way of judging the future but by the past, and the British ministry for the last 10 years to justify those hopes which the gentlemen have been pleased to solace themselves in the House. It is insidious, and he smiled, with which our petition was being lately received. Trust it not, sir. It will prove a snare to your feet. Suffer not yourselves betrayed with a kiss. Ask yourself, how gracious to a work of love and reconciliation have we shown ourselves so unwilling to be reconciled that force must be called in to win back our love? Let us not deceive ourselves, sir. These are the implements of war and subjugation, the last arguments to which kings resort. I ask, gentlemen, sir, what means this the martial array of the possible motive for it? Has Great Britain any enemy in this quarter? She has none. They are meant for us. They can be meant for no other. They are sent over to bind and rivet upon us chains which the British ministry have been so long forging. And what have we to oppose them? Shall we try the argument? Sir, we've been trying that for the last 10 years. The subject of every light of which is capable, but has been all shall we find which we have not been already exhausted. Let us not, I beseech you, sir, deceive ourselves. Sir, we have done everything we could be done to avert the storm which is now coming on upon us. We have petitioned, We have remonstrated, we have supplicated, we have prostrated ourselves before the throne, we have implored interposition to arrest and tyrannical hands of the ministry of Parliament. Our petitions have been slighted, our supplications have been disregarded, and we have been spurned with contempt from the foot of the throne. In vain, after these things, when we indulge upon hope of peace and reconciliation, there is no longer any room for hope if we wish to be free. If we mean to preserve and violate those inestimable privileges for which we've been so long contending, if we meant not basically to abandon the noble struggle which we have been so long engaged, and which we pledge ourselves never to abandon to the glorious object of our conscience shall be attained, we must fight. I repeat it, sir, we must fight. An appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all that is left us. They tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be next week or will it be next year? Will it be when we're totally disarmed and British guards will be stationed in every house? Shall we gather strength by evolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying spinally on our backs and hugging the delusive fathom of hope until our enemies shall bound us up hand and foot, sir? We are not weak if we make proper use of those means which the God of nature has placed in our power. The millions of people armed in a holy cause of liberty, and in such a country as this we should possess and invincible by any force which your enemy can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battle alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations, who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the advice, the brave. Besides, sir, we have no election. If we are base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. The clanking may be heard in the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat, sir, let it come. It is in vain, sir, to insinuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry peace, peace, but there is no peace at all. The war is actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the fields. Why stand here idle? What is it? What is the gentleman wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. You know, I say all that, so you say, man, that's a long statement today. But you know, this guy began to say this, and one thing Patrick Henry said is he literally looked at the president, talked to everybody. Listen, we're not going to sit here and just allow the enemy to take control of our lives. I don't know what you're thinking, he said, but on our shores right now, there are ships all down our shores getting ready to take our families, to take our wives, and to take our nation. Because I don't know what you're thinking, but I do know one thing, is that I want liberty or give me death. But you and I must fight, and we must fight now. And I thought about that today because they went to war. And I can only imagine the lives killed, the lives that suffered, so they can have freedom. But it was on that day that a nation began to rise up, which is called America today. And they said, listen, we have a right to worship our God. We have a right to be happy. We have a right to have the joy of the Lord. We have a right to do all these things, but it's not going to come. Freedom's not going to come by the enemy that's laying down and giving it to us. We're going to have to fight for it. We're going to have to die for it. We're going to have to kill for it. We're going to have to sacrifice for it. We're going to do all that we have to do to obtain freedom. I thought about that, church. We must be willing to do the same thing. Give me liberty or give me death, he said. There's some fighting words. Today I want you to think about this. The Declaration of Independence was literally written in 1776. When you read the old Declaration of Independence, only 4 pages long. I'm not going to read it to you today. But when you look at it today, they're saying, listen, we're not going to stand for this at all. We have a right to be free. We have a right to be a country. We have a right to make our laws. We have a right to stand up for the glory and for the honor of God. We have a right to do all that God's called us to do. And it was that day they went to war. Listen to me, to have freedom it costs a price. And you have to be willing to lay down your life. To have freedom and liberty, there has to be a change of mind. Thank you. There has to be a change of mind. To have liberty and to have freedom, there literally has to come to a point in our lives that we say, listen, I'm not going to take this anymore. It has to come to a point in our lives that you say, I'm tired of being tired. It has to come to a point in our lives that we realize and understand there's an enemy out there. He is not going to give up at all. And it's time to fight. It's time to give us it all. I'm not going to be pushed around anymore. We're blessed because men and women are willing to die for freedom and liberty. And church, we continue the blessing not only for ourselves,